when I turned 16, I had a series of cysts pop around my ovaries and fallopian tubes. And well, I think it really isolates you in a lot of ways. It makes you hold things and carry things in your own strength when you should be partnering with God. It was 2019, we started the adoption process in WA, which is a long journey. It took us 2 years to get approved and get through those seminars.
Well, hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Help Me See show. And I'm so excited to be on another episode with you as we are really in this journey of building a community of people who are challenging limiting belief systems, who are sharing stories of how they've been able to see possibility and pushing past the familiar. And today I have the privilege of interviewing one of my great friends who also happens to be my sister, Ashley, originally Driedger, but now ashleygee. And so Ashley, hey, so good to have you on the show. Thanks for being on with me.
Yeah. Hi, guys. So good to be here.
That's great. I'm so excited to have you on the show, Ash, because you are not only an incredible person, but you have an incredible story that I don't think a lot of people can fully appreciate some of the things that you've gone through and experienced. And today we're going to talk a little bit about your journey, especially as it relates to becoming a mom, which has been really an over almost 20-year journey that only recently has kind of begun to shift and has actually fully shifted, which I can't wait to talk about. But I want to talk a little bit by going back 20 years to you at age 16. I know you had really a devastating kind of experience and not one that you had expected and you woke up to. So maybe if you'd be okay with it, take us back to Ashley, age 16, and what kind of happened to you that really shifted everything for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I turned 16, I had a series of cysts pop around my ovaries and fallopian tubes. And it was about a 6-month period where I would just be walking down the hall at school and a cyst would pop. And I remember like collapsing in pain and not really knowing what to do about it or what it could be. My mom at the time took me to the doctor numerous times to explore and try and find out what was happening. And unfortunately, we had a doctor who was very dismissive and just thought I was a young girl who couldn't handle period pain. Long story short, I ended up in emergency where they took a blood test that showed my white blood cell count was very high, and ended up in an exploratory surgery where they ended up finding an infection the size of a cantaloupe that engulfed both ovaries and fallopian tubes. And I remember waking up from that surgery, not knowing what had happened. It was meant just to be a 30-minute, scope, they call it. So I woke up to my dad actually crying next to me in the hospital, saying what the doctors had found and what that meant for my future. And I think at 16, you don't really know where to put that. I've always had a desire to be a mom, but I think at that time I didn't really have the tools to know how to deal and how to face that at the time. So I think that healing process began truthfully a lot later in the journey.
Right.
So
So 16, you woke up, dad's there telling you what's happened, and what were your thoughts, or what kind of what did you begin to think immediately?
Yeah, I think that moment definitely changed my life in a lot of ways. I felt like a bit powerless, to be honest, because one, I didn't know that surgery was going to happen. And two, I didn't really, as a young girl, know how to advocate for myself in the medical world. So I felt like I was really disappointed in the doctors that I approached with pain, and that this could have been prevented, to be honest. So yeah, there was
Right.
a lot of
Right.
disappointment and anger at that time.
Yeah.
And I think from a very young age, I wanted to be a mom. And anyone who knew
Mm.
me knew that I love children, and that
Yes.
like I was the first to line up at church to work in the nursery, not just to get out of service, but I genuinely love taking care of children. And so it felt like a significant loss, even though I didn't necessarily know how to process it. There was a part of me
Yeah.
that instantly shut off to children, just
Right.
to, yeah, just to protect that wound, I guess. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And so obviously you went through this, and then how did that begin to shape? So I know you talked a little bit about,
Yeah.
being disillusioned a bit with the medical system.
Yeah.
Um, even probably there's a part of you that was frustrated that no one else helped you or fought for you. Talk to me
Hmm.
a little bit about maybe navigating what was a
Yeah.
lack of people maybe
I
fighting
think
for
it
you.
put me in a place of wanting to strive, like that no one was going to help me. That if I was going to do
Okay.
something, it was going to come out of my own strength and my own, yeah, my
Yeah.
own striving. So I think that I definitely didn't feel seen by God in that like
Hmm.
you made me. I felt like He really made me to be a mother, and yet He took it away. And
Hmm.
so feeling very unseen as I came into adulthood, and um
Yeah.
yeah, having to explain that loss to, partners that I had dated, and
Yeah.
doctors in the future. Like you could see their devastation too when you would tell
Yeah.
people. And I think, yeah, it's something that really I guess put a lens up of how I see God, and
Huh.
how I operated in general, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. You said a word there that triggered me. You
Mhm.
said you felt unseen.
Yeah.
Uh, can you explore that like for a minute with me? Like,
Yeah.
because I don't think people really understand what it's like to lose a major part of of womanhood, right? That
Mhm.
maternal piece of you that
Yeah.
felt so strong inside of you.
Yeah.
To be unseen, what is that like? And
Yeah.
take us there for a minute.
Well, I think it really isolates you in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Um, it makes you hold things and carry things in your own strength when you should
Yeah.
be partnering with God, or
Mm.
you want to partner with God. And I think I know we'll talk about this later, but even in exploring IVF, I didn't invite God into that process until much later in my
Mm.
fertility journey, because yeah, I had this framework that I was on my own in this, and
Yeah.
so that was something I had to like really confront, and I think
Yeah.
God put me in positions in my life to see that one, I couldn't do it without Him,
Yeah.
and two, that He wants to partner with me. That in my faith, it's yes, it's about action, but He wants to do this journey with me, if that makes
Right. Yeah,
sense.
it makes perfect sense.
Mhm.
So that feeling of being unseen created a framework for you where walls were up
Mhm.
and you felt really alone and isolated. Was that
Yeah.
something that you had to shift or break or allow others into?
Mhm.
Was that something that took was that a journey? What does
Yeah.
that look like in marriage? Like, as you
Yeah.
dated, as eventually got married, was that a framework
Mhm.
that took a while to change? Because I know you're not like that
Yeah.
really anymore at almost at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
But uh,
Yeah. I
yeah,
think
how did you
it took
navigate that framework?
yeah, absolutely. I think God put me in positions regularly where I I guess you and I both grew up in the same environment. So if we worked really hard, we would get a good result. That's
Yes.
what I believed to my core. So I went at everything with this mindset that I have to work really hard. And
Mm,
and I pushed myself to breaking point numerous times in different areas of my life, but also
Yeah.
in the pursuit of having a family, because
Mm.
I had that lens of like, if this is going to happen, I'm going to make it happen. And
Right.
and now that you've heard my story, you know that like it needed a miracle, like it needed God's
Mm.
touch on it for it to come true. And I think just in my pride, to be honest, and in my kind of disillusionment and disappointment with God, I win at things in my own strength a lot. And I think
Right.
you don't get the joy, you don't get the freedom, and you don't um there's no room for curiosity in that, or mystery of
Right.
God. Whereas I
Yeah.
feel now, like in my faith, there's a new joy and an excitement that it's not all up to me, that he also
Yeah.
um brings the goodness and the glory into all situations that we face. So
Mm.
yeah, I can honestly say that now that I've I've got to that point of surrender with God, that it's like it's a way more joyful experience living out my faith than it was
Yeah.
pre pre surrender.
Got it.
So yeah.
So it sounds like this is something maybe that crosses over from, being seen by God, but also being seen by others. You thought you
Yeah.
had to earn it. It was
Mhm,
something that
absolutely.
you could work for, and you
Yeah.
could earn it, and then you were worthy of it.
Yeah.
Has that been something that has changed for you over time?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think um anytime I approach, like, from small things to big things now, it's way more exciting, because it's like, yes, I've always seen faith as an action step, like you take a step
Mm.
and then you trust and surrender the outcome to God. And I think that that new way of approaching life has just brought so much freedom to me and joy in
Yeah.
my faith. So yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Um, well, let's talk about then the last 20 years, because
Mhm.
like we said, you've been on a journey. You already
Yeah.
mentioned IVF, which can you
Yeah.
on the record tell us what that means again?
Yeah, so IVF is in vitro fertilization. So it's
Okay, that's
essentially,
that's what I
yeah,
thought.
yeah. It's
That's
essentially
all,
when,
just a definite.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. That's all
It's
I needed.
basic. Okay, okay,
Uh,
okay. Most
no,
people
no, that's good.
will know.
So last 20 years,
Yeah,
IVF. Yeah, I know that's more recent, but
yeah,
you've been obviously you had this dream. I remember, talking to you a lot about this over the last number of years. And there was one time I remember specifically you and I having this phone call, and this was after like I think rounds of IVF. This was after like, just trying to adopt, trying to just you had this dream of being a mom. And I remember you calling me and just flat out asking me like, Justin, is this dream just am I an idiot for having this dream? Like, am I literally stupid for holding on to this dream? I've tried everything, and like you just asked me straight out, like, am I just ridiculously stupid for having this dream? And I just remember I didn't know how to answer you, but I just said no. I was like, no, if this is in you, I just believe it's in you. God's put it in you. It's there for a reason. Hold on to it. And I feel like you were at your end, but can you talk a little bit about
yeah,
maybe the journey leading up to that, and maybe some of the
yeah,
last maybe, you know, number
yeah,
of years as you kind of process that?
yeah. I do remember that phone call, and how, yeah, you definitely spoke truth to me. And it's amazing how, like, when you're surrounded by believers and people who are Christians and actually believe the truth of God, like how refueling that can be when you're in those dark
Hmm.
moments. So I'll always remember
Yeah.
that phone call, and some of the truth that you said in that call. But yeah, so I'll even go back to 10 years after the surgery, because
Okay. Yes.
that was a significant point in the journey too. And that's um, at that point, I believed I had no ovaries, right? So doctors,
Right.
I have a surgical report saying both ovaries, both fallopian tubes removed. And
Yeah.
when I was 26 years old, I started having some hormonal imbalances and ended up having an ultrasound to investigate, my body,
Hmm.
and they ended up finding an ovary. So that
Right.
was like very, I think that reinvigorated me in a way of like,
Mm.
oh, I have an ovary. Like I was so curious, like, okay, what can
Yeah.
this one ovary do?
And excuse the question, but is that normal?
No,
Like
so
to regrow ovaries?
yeah, so I believe that it is a regrowth of my ovary.
Yeah.
Doctors would say that it was missed in the surgery, or that, I was on a high dose of hormone replacement, that, you know, that stimulation could have helped that ovary grow, or whatever it is. But I do believe that it was an answer to a prayer that I had had years earlier, because I was on synthetic hormones and just not feeling great in my body. I felt hormonally off. And so I prayed, God, like, would you just allow my body to function normally? Like as a woman, like, would you let, and that was to me the first miracle, the first part where I felt like God answered my cry, and and that one ovary, it's supplying all the hormones I need. It's functioning well. And yeah, I don't have a fallopian tube, which is why I'm doing IVF, but it is functional, and kind of reopened me. And that was like right after I was engaged to my now husband, that we found that ovary. So yeah, just like the beauty in that journey, like from the very
Yeah.
beginning with him, was like, God, what are you going to do? I think that definitely
Right.
opened up my mind and heart again to
Mm.
see, like, okay, God, what can you do here?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
So it kind of sparked, that was kind of like an introduction. Well, I guess it was just
yeah,
almost a resparking of a dream.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So then the
And
last 10 years, what's been kind of the journey for you?
yeah, yeah. So at a similar time that we started exploring IVF, it was 2019, we started the adoption process in WA, which is a long journey. It took us 2 years to get approved and get through those seminars. And the advice we got was that it was very low odds, again. So there's no wait list in WA. So there's about 56 couples on the wait list, and one or two local adoptions a year. So, and sometimes there's no local adoptions. So getting on that wait list, it's not like you're next in line. It's the birth parents actually select you based on a profile that you create. So whether I was looking at IVF or adoption, the odds were really stacked against us in a lot of ways. But yet I felt like anytime I would pray about it or go to God, he would speak to me, and he would remind me of who he is. And one thing he did say to me early on, I can't remember exactly when it was in the journey, but he said, I will make you a mother when it brings the most glory to me. And I remember hearing that from him and holding on like for dear life, because it was a dream that I couldn't get rid of. Like James, my partner, would try and explore a life without, like, what if we don't have kids? Like, what could we do? What could our life be about? And I would instantly shut him down, because I was like, there's no, like, that's not my heart. That's not who I see myself being. And so yeah, then in 2021 we were approved. And uh, at the same time that we were doing adoption, we were also exploring IVF. And it took me like 3 doctors actually to find one who had some level of optimism about my situation. And so she's a beautiful lady. I'll always like have a soft spot for her, because she was really realistic with us, but at the same time, she had that same curiosity that I did. Like, if let's see what this ovary can do. And yeah, so we went at that for a year and a half. And in that process, faced some heartbreaking disappointments. One cycle we had collected, and it was a long cycle. It was 6 weeks long, which isn't normal for an IVF cycle. They're normally 2 weeks, but daily injections morning and night, and for 5 to 6 weeks. And we did the embryo or the egg collection, and none of the eggs fertilized. So we had 7 eggs collected. And I remember being so disappointed at that, because I thought, here my ovaries collected, 7 eggs and nothing fertilizes. Like, God, what are you doing? Like, that was your job. I did my part. What are you doing? And then the cycle after that, we did get pregnant, which was like, there was so much joy in that for us. And to me, that was the miracle of being able to be pregnant and to have that ovary functional. But we did lose that baby. And I think at that point, I had no faith left. And that's when I called you. And I remember you said to me the story of Hagar, which is when she renames God and she says, "You're like the God who sees me." And I'll never forget that moment, because I felt like, yeah, you share your pain with people, and to be able to bring that to you and to God, like, I just saw his compassion and kindness. And I also saw in myself that at that point I was like, I can't make this happen. Like, it was another moment for me of having to surrender that desire daily and say, God, like, I did my part. I stepped out in faith. It took courage to, do these rounds of IVF, spend this money, and put my body under this intense, like, synthetic hormones and all of that. And what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do? And another conversation that I'd had with a friend that ignited my faith was my friend Asha. She said to me, like, I have no doubt that God's written motherhood on your heart. And I think it was just another moment where someone in my community saw me and believed with me that God would make this dream happen. And it was 4 weeks after that miscarriage that we got the call about our daughter, Rianne Alea-G. And we moved abruptly from Melbourne to Perth to be able to adopt her. And she has been like...
You didn't just move. You quit your jobs. You got out of your house lease. You literally called your boss like on the way to Perth, being like, we've packed our stuff. And if we have jobs, great. But I remember that was just like the same day, like 2 days. You were like,
we found out on the Thursday, and we needed to be there to Perth on the Monday. So we literally packed up our life, and
goodness.
It was really surreal as well, because we were actually on holidays with some friends of ours at the time. And the morning we found out about Rianne, James and I went to the beach and we buried it. Like, we said, God, I remember us saying to each other, like, you've done everything you need to do for us. Like, let's surrender this back to him and trust that if it's meant to happen, it will. And I remember praying that prayer with him and just kind of getting through the grief, getting through the disappointment, and then just finding peace in, the journey and the struggle. And it was like so crazy, because it was 4 hours later that we got the call about Rianne.
Whoa.
So it was pretty cool.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to just lean in on this thought for a second with you, because I'm curious how, when all the odds are stacked against you, like physically in your body, all these paths you've tried, adoption, IVF has not worked. That's failed. Even your own spouse, is like, maybe we just, maybe there's some other, you have this dream inside of you. How did you hold on to that? Like, I know you called me to like, you even questioned it, but you still didn't let go of it.
Yeah.
What is that? What is that in you? How did you hold on to that? I know part of that's faith, but like, Is that just
Mm,
part of your like personality? Is that a choice? Is that like, like
mm,
what is that?
yeah. I think that like as a Christian, you're always living in that like tension between like your reality and like the kingdom of God.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think for me, when I would pray about it, I would feel so hopeful and so confident in God and in who He made me to be. When I would look at it from reality, from what I'm facing every day, like living in that gap was probably the hardest part, to just stay fixed on Jesus and like surrender it to him. And I think that like I really did think surrender was like a one-time thing you did with God. But for me it was like every morning, every night, every gate that we would get through, every injection. Yeah. And you know, there were so many milestones and markers that we couldn't meet in this process. So it was like almost like constant disappointment for like 2 years of our life, you know? And so I think it was those moments where God would show up for me and reveal a part of himself. So his kindness, his goodness, his like his nature. And I was like, you know me, like you see me. So like that desire isn't going anywhere. So what are you going to do? And I think one thing I will say is like I'm a very curious person, and I understand that with God there's a lot of mystery and there's a lot of like unknowns, and yet like I believe that like the stories in the Bible. Like I believe that he can raise people from the dead. Like I believe that he is a miracle working God. So why not for me? Like why not in this, you know? And I think that's something that my heart was really open to. Um, when I had done everything I could do, I was like, there's no other option here but to trust and to really like lay
Hmm.
it down. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Wild. In what would you say is the biggest belief system that you've had to challenge along the way?
I think that like the big one was definitely like questioning whether I'm seen by God. Like that was one that I really had to like take off that lens of fear and take off that lens of um yeah, because I think in a short period of time, like there was, you know, God took a lot away from me, and I felt that He had, you know, we lost our mom at 18, shortly after, you know, losing my ovaries, and so I felt like He was this powerful guy in the sky who could just take away from me, and I think when I experienced a new side of him, like his generosity, his compassion, his kindness in the suffering, is when I started to really question what I knew about God. And I think whether we like it or not, our experiences shape how we see God. They shape our faith, they shape. And I think at one point I remember saying, like, my experience of God is not all there is. Like, this cannot be, because there's too much disappointment. So I want to see your glory. And that was the promise that he said to me, was that like, I will make you a mother when it brings the most glory to me. So I was like, okay, I'm waiting for your goodness. I'm waiting for your glory. And I think, like, I can't say that I was in that spot this whole journey, but now that I have landed there, like, I'm stuck there. Like,
Yeah.
I'm waiting in all
Right.
things, like, for his glory to show up. And it's
Yeah.
not that you don't step out in faith and choose courage and choose to walk with him. He wants us to partner with him, but I think that like I'm done doing it on my own. I really like want to see his goodness in all things, and if it's not good, it's not done. Like, and I think that that's like a big thing that I've learned in this process, that he's always at work, like behind the curtain. He's always shifting things, and like the reality we live in, like I heard my pastor say, like it's like living in the tension of the parallels. Like it's not comfortable being in that tension of like your reality and the promise of God. But it's like it sure does like go it develops something deep within you. And I think that that's been like, yeah, in the last month or so, like seeing like the gift that she is, like she is not something that we earned. Like she is a gift from God fully. And I think every day I wake up and I get to see this beautiful child running around, and like I still haven't processed it fully, you know? Like it's really beautiful to experience like the gifts that God gives us, and that this
Yeah.
wasn't something to be earned. Yeah.
That's so cool. I
Yeah.
mean, it's wild. Yeah, like what when you talked about what you see in in the physical versus what you see in the spiritual,
Yeah.
and choosing to hold on to goodness when you're actually not fully seeing it. Like it's
Yeah.
goodness unrealized.
Yeah.
And yet being able to it's one thing to say God is good when things are good and you have
Mhm.
experienced it, especially when it relates to your dreams. It's another thing to say that God is good when you have things taken away from you that are directly correlated to your dreams and that thing that's inside of you. So that inside of you is wild to me that you still chose, even when the thing that was most closest to your heart was like being taken away, almost like an Isaac and Abraham kind of moment. Like God gives him the son and then asks him, "Are you willing to release it to me?" And in that process, you've been able to experience such beauty and wonder. Like, so I'm curious, like in this next season for you, or maybe in this past few months, or like, 6 months even, what's shifted for you for like, yeah, what you see in terms of future, what you
Yeah.
see as it relates to your relationship with God, possibility.
Yeah.
What's kind of shifted for you in terms
Yeah.
of what you now see?
Yeah. It's like it's funny, I was saying to my partner the other day that I feel like I'm like born again. Like I'm like a new Christian because all of a sudden I don't have that lens on anymore. So it's like I'm looking at my faith differently. And for me, it did take a miracle for me to see God in my life. And I think, you read any story in the Bible, like Lazarus rising from the dead, or like how could that not change how you see everything, And so I think anytime there's like an inclining of uh, impossibility or challenge in my life, like I want to approach it with faith and action, but also like fully connected to God and inviting him in on that journey, like to partner with me, because it's better. I've just seen how much better he is at, at creating the life that we want. You know what I mean? Like we can do our part and strive and operate out of our own strength. But when you choose to like live a life partnered with God, I think it's so much more beautiful, and like you really do see like his glory in your life. And I think that I'm excited to see more of that. And there's no challenge, there's no obstacle where like I want to face that on my own. Like I want to like completely partner with him. And there was a scripture I'd love to share with you because I only just read it recently. But Romans 8:18, and it says, "I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us." And I think like it's also changed my perspective on suffering, that suffering isn't, yeah, like no one wants to suffer, but when you like surrender your pain and when you trust him, like there is an opportunity for his goodness to invade that situation. And I think like I firmly believe that if it's not good, it's not done. So if there's any part of your life where you're feeling like you're living in that tension, or you're feeling discouraged, like just trust that like he's not done, like he's still at work. And I feel like the strength that I've found in those years of suffering has actually brought this incredible strength to me that like I didn't even know was in me. And I feel
Hmm.
like more courageous than ever because of having to face those fears along the way.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was so many moments I
What
wanted.
an
Yeah.
oh, sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to say, what an interesting dichotomy that surrendering your suffering
Mhm.
actually has made you feel so empowered as you've experienced, God at work in your life. And like
Yeah.
you talked about, experiencing his glory being revealed. But like, what an interesting thing that we think suffering is weakness. We think suffering means, we're a victim. And yet you've actually shown that surrendering your suffering has empowered you to experience a totally new perspective. It's allowed you to walk into possibility and now to see it even more than maybe somebody who hasn't gone through the dark night of the soul or hasn't suffered. Like, to me, it's almost like you have a double portion of
Mm.
possibility because of what you've experienced. To me, is
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. And like you always hear those sayings like, God will bring like good out of every situation. And I
Right.
at times like I had no it's me it felt so senseless. It was like why would like why are we suffering here? Why are we going through this? And now like I can honestly say I wouldn't ask for any of it to be taken away because of the joy that I now experience. It's like I wouldn't want to take away that for a second. Like the joy that I have in parenting Ree and this experience has another promise that actually God spoke to my partner James at the start of 2024 was that he was going to bring joy into our life. Like that God was going to bring a lot of joy. And um, if anyone that knows us closely, like there was disappointment after disappointment in 2024, and from family stuff to work stuff, it was just on and on, like just yeah, lots of pain, lots of suffering. And when we met Rianne for the first time, they explained that her name Rianne Alea means joy, and like that for us, like as soon as we heard her name, we just wept. Like we couldn't stop weeping because like God's promise was like even in the suffering, his promise was strong. His promise was there. And I remember like it took us, I think, 40 minutes to just recover after hearing her name because it was like, yeah,
Wow.
it is a truth of who she is. She is joy.
Hmm.
And we
Joy
experienced
in
that.
the morning.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah. I feel like I could
Wow.
just talk and talk and talk about all of the like coincidences now that we look at the
Yeah.
situation going back and we're like, wow, like you were in all of this, even though we couldn't
Yeah.
feel it
Yeah.
at the time.
Wild.
So, yeah.
I want to talk about your future, but I'm
Hmm.
also thinking of maybe somebody who's listening who they're deep in it, like
Yeah.
they're in the dark night and they're just, like you
Yeah.
have a dream to
Yeah.
be a mom or even a dad, and
Hmm.
it's just isn't how they thought it would be. The dream has not
Yeah.
been a reality. What would you say to someone who like
Mm.
they're in the deep dark night of it all and
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
really see a light at the end of the tunnel?
Mm.
What would you want someone like that to know?
Yeah. I think that, yeah, any woman going through this process knows the yeah, just it gets you so focused on what's in front of you that you sometimes can't see God in it. And I think that like no matter how dark it gets, that you have to remember that there is a God in heaven who is working for you. And yeah, that this, I think I said it before, but like this life is not all there is. Like keep holding on to promises and plant seeds of truth. Find people who will speak to that as well. I think finding like the power of a truth planted in your heart and mind, like it will take you further than you think you can go. And so find those scriptures, find that promise of God and anchor yourself to that, and you'll be able to weather any storm, you'll be able to weather any disappointment in that process if you just hold on to truth. And I think doctors will tell you certain things, friends will look at you weird when you tell them what you're doing, or you know what I mean, like you'll get yeah, confusion from all sides, but if God's giving you like a promise, like trust him, because I'm on the other side of it now. And like, and the other thing is like, don't bow to fear. Like, stay courageous. Keep like, like, do what you can, like, to partner with God in it. And find your courage, find your strength, because he provides it. Right when you think you're out of it, he'll come through with another energizing
Hmm.
truth or a scripture or a promise to keep you going. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Incredible. I love that. Don't bow to fear. Whoa,
Hmm.
that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
I love that. Like there's, yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
so much that we can kind of just let sort of redirect our thoughts and our minds and be tossed in the wind and the waves and to go like, no, I will not bow to that.
yeah,
And, the opposite of fear is love. Perfect
yeah,
love casts out all fear is what, we talk about in the
yeah,
Bible. Like that's and that's how you get through fear. You know,
yeah,
perfect love.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so that's so
And
powerful.
I think fear as well, like it grows. It grows if you let it. It becomes this giant thing in your life. And I've definitely had moments where fear crippled me and stopped me from taking the steps towards, the adoption process or IVF. And I definitely had months where I had to like face that fear, but facing it is, I'd say, the only way to deal with it is to actually like step towards it. And that takes courage. That takes real courage. So and I think, yeah, God wants to be, for you who he was for me. And in the storms of life, in the disillusionment and the confusion, like, hold on to, yeah, those truths of who God is, as much
It's
as you can.
amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. Uh, Real quick, can you talk to me about how important has it been for you to surround yourself with a tribe of positive,
Mhm.
believing with you,
Yeah.
possibility thinking kinds of people?
Yeah.
Have you had to be pretty selective about that?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think like there were certain people I just wouldn't have the conversation with. And then there were people that I had seasons where every day I would call them. And I had a good friend, Brianna, who um, just believes in the God that walked through scripture and healed and brought miracles. And I remember every time I would speak to her, I could feel like a transfer of faith. Like I could feel it through the phone. I was in Melbourne, she was in Perth. And I think that when you hit those blocks, which you will, like where you doubt everything, you question God and his nature, like those are the moments where my friends really came through for me to speak truth and hope into a pretty disappointing, bleak situation. And I think it has to be the people that know you, because I think like them calling out the truth, you even calling out, who God is, like, the God who sees me, like that the words that we speak have such power. And so, and even when I was exploring with doctors, if they had no curiosity, if they had nothing positive to say, I went to a new
Yeah.
doctor, because I'm like,
Right.
it's I'm
I'll take a
curious.
second opinion.
Yeah, like, and find people who, like, whether they're Christian or not, have some level of optimism and curiosity, because they'll journey with you in your own curiosity too. So yeah, I think having friends and people of faith around you that you invite in intentionally to speak truth is like so crucial.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting idea as you think of those dreams and it's past just uh, a dream of having a child, but I think you have to hold tightly to those seedlings. If you have a dream that it's not just something, it's like a baby. You don't just hand it to anybody. It's like it's fragile. It's like it's something to be nurtured and cared for, and so it matters who you have around you, people that you could trust, people who see what you see, and they choose to dream with you and believe with you. And that's not out of just blind optimism. That's people who have these same frameworks. And for you, obviously, faith has been a major one for getting through that as well. So surrounding yourself with people who have that framework as well. So I love that. That's amazing. Okay, well, we only have a few minutes left, so I want to talk about the future. Um, I feel like you've just now scratched the surface a little bit. You talked about feeling like you're kind of like newly born in a way to just seeing possibility in your life. But what are you excited about? Like when you think about the future, I know you're still in the process of, IVF. I don't know if it's okay if I
Yeah.
talk about that, but I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
did.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, you're still in that
Yeah.
process,
Yeah.
and so we're believing for that too. But yeah, like
Yeah.
what are you excited about? What are you dreaming about as it relates to future possibility? What do you see as you think to the
Yeah.
future?
Yeah. I think like now that I have this new lens and this new way of looking at it, it's like there's just an excitement for partnering with God in everything. So like whether it's buying a house or expanding our family, we're still pursuing IVF, as you mentioned. Like I think that like there's such a difference in the way that I approach things because mentally it was always about what I could do. It was about me. Whereas now, the way that I look at things and obstacles is like, how is God going to partner with me in this? And I have to say, it's a lot more fun. It's not any less scary, but there's a lot more excitement in it, and also possibility, because it doesn't. There's no limit. Like with me, there's limits. But when God partners with you, it's like there's literally nothing that can get in the way. And I think that like our creativity, our human bodies can only go so far. And I think that with God, it's like there's nothing that you can't do. And so I think the dreams that God's put in my heart is definitely to serve women and to help people in a lot of different ways. And I think that yeah, like that's another dream that God's put there for a reason. And I think I look at those little desires now differently to what I did before. I'm like, oh, that's just like a little fun thing that I'm thinking about. But it's like I take things much more serious now. I'm like, oh God, like you put that in there. I trust that that's in there for a reason. Let's
Yeah,
explore
like that
that.
could actually happen.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I think that like, yeah, just moving towards like, yeah, God in all things is it, and I think it's just really like it's made my Christian faith a lot more exciting because it's it's yeah, it's God will have his way. Like God will have his way in
Yeah,
all areas of our life. So yeah, I think it just
yeah,
made it a lot more
it's-
exciting.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think you've experienced possibility when you were at your end, that God did
Yeah.
step in. He did reveal himself to you in that way. So
Yeah.
now it's like, okay, well, if you tried everything and then you partnered with him and you did that together,
Mhm.
and like
Yeah.
what could be possible. And to me, that's like at the heart of this show is really that idea, is that yes, there's a width to this thing, a possibility that it's in every arena, and we love that idea. But for me, there's depth in it as well. And the depth is that when you actually believe that the God of the universe, you could know him and he could know you, and you could tap into the God who knows everything, who is everything, who has built everything. What could be possible? And what limitations are you living in currently that is actually a floor that you need to begin to stand on? It's no longer a ceiling. And so I love that about you, that it's constantly, like you said, it's now fun. It's not just, oh, I'm going to try to do this in my own strength and muster enough and kind of do this thing a little bit. It's like, no, actually, like, what if I could help other women? And what if our family could continue to grow? And what if actually, like, there's things that I haven't even thought of yet or dreamed of yet, and I'm just scratching the surface. And those things could be unlocked by that mindset shift. And what if? And I
Yeah.
love that about you, because I think there's no limit to that.
Mhm. And it almost like removes the self in a way because it's like you're not looking at it through your own ego. You're not looking at it through like only your limitations. You're seeing the possibility, which is like the exciting part for sure. So yeah, and I think as your younger sister, like you've always brought the best out of me, and you've always been someone who like for me, doesn't see limitations. And it's been quite surreal actually watching you launch this podcast and hearing some of the things that you've had to face in your journey too, of just, facing limiting beliefs and like believing for possibilities instead. And I think it's just such an honor and privilege to be, chatting with you today. So.
Me too. Me too. Well, I just want to say I believe in you, and I'm so proud of your journey that you've been on. You've actually inspired me to challenge my own thinking that where have I, settled for just familiar, and seeing your story and you coming to your end and still trusting God when you felt like there was nothing else that you could do. And to have that moment to be able to sit with you on the phone and to just see a God who does see you. And I want to call that on you, that there's more for you. And what you've started has really just the beginning, and what you're going to model for Rianne and future family members, God willing. We're just believing the best for you and for James. And I just love you a lot. So I speak that over your life, and may this be the beginning, and may it be just such a beautiful journey as you keep going. And I'm just believing the best for you.
Thank you. Thanks, Justin.
Yeah. So thanks for being on the show. I know people are going to be encouraged, and I know that there's somebody who's going to watch this or listen to this who is just going to be hang on another day. And maybe that's for whoever is watching, or listening. Just hang on another day. Don't give up. Keep going. Challenge that limiting belief system. Silence those voices and believe for possibility. So love you lots, Ash. Thanks so much for being on.
Too. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. And if you like this video and want to see more like it, just hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, or you can follow me on Instagram at @Driedger. And if you have a question, or if there's someone you would like to be featured on the show, shoot me an email at hello@helpmeseepodcast.ca. And together, let's keep challenging limiting belief systems, choosing to see possibility, and pushing past the familiar. This is the Help Me See Show.